Well, folks, it's another week. It's another loss. McGarvin's back with us. 21-14. It's weird because we had this game chalked as a loss going into the season, but the fact that it was winnable makes it so much more. Not even like it was mad. It's mad in the moment, but annoying.
Yeah, definitely. Team goes out there and plays the way they played, giving the football up as much as they did. It's even if you peg it as a loss, even if you go in like, all right, like the Patriots are going to lose this, you hope it doesn't look like how it did from like the second quarter to the fourth. Like you're hoping for a little better than that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think I've lost you. I think I lost you.
I'm back. So basically what happened was I thought I had my AirPods connected. AirPods decided not to work. I'm like, I hear McGarvin out of my monitor because I'm on my usual setup today, guys. I'm on the road. But yeah, no, when you can beat a team that's giving you every inch, even though you've given them 5 literal fumbles, that's the annoying part. But I'll say this right now. I saw the stats today with Drake May where it's just like, he's leading the league in EPA for third down. Their completion rate, I think I'm going for it on like third and fourth downs, really good. So there are some positives to take away from the first few games, but you want to see them keep progressing and eventually turn it into wins, which hopefully they do this Sunday, because if they lose Sunday, I think that's when you can not panic, but you can really start to worry about the direction of this team.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday's a winnable game as well, but I mean, the Patriots have had 4 winnable games or 3 winnable games through this point and have 1 win to show for it. So I'm not going to chalk anything up as a win or a loss, but I agree. I think they should beat Carolina, or they could beat Carolina. Carolina can be a little frisky. I like their defense a lot. I know I mentioned that on the show before. And they put belt to ass against Atlanta this past weekend. So, can't quite count them out, but I think the Patriots will be fine. It just needs to look better than it did against Pittsburgh, because you can't turn it over 5 times and expect to win any games. And yet that was the case, right? Like Patriots are driving in the fourth, under 6 to go, and it felt like, all right, they might be able to do something here. And then they turned it over. But, it felt like, okay, they can win this game. At that point, it had already been 14-14 for like 40 days and 40 nights. And I was like, holy smokes, like we may be able to get something here. They're driving. And then Drake coughs it up. And then, Pittsburgh goes down, they score. And, that's tough. But even after that, they turned it over on downs on that final drive. They turned it over on downs, and that was another one where it felt like, okay, like they've been pissing down their leg this whole time, but there's still an opportunity. And then, they gave it away. So I think as long as it looks better in that regard to, taking care of the football, right? Like, I know it's a cliche and, everyone hates cliches, but like, you win the turnover margin, you're going to win the game, like, right? Like you can't lose the turnover margin and win the game. That doesn't typically happen. And you certainly can't be -4 in the turnover margin and win the game. That literally doesn't happen. So, take care of the football and let's see how it goes, because like you mentioned, Pittsburgh was giving them every opportunity. I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw for, I think, like 17 total yards or something, something like that. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but I think he threw for like 100 and 120 yards, something to that effect. They had 204 yards of total offense, the Pittsburgh Steelers did, compared to the Patriots, who I believe had 369. The difference in that game was turnovers. Like that can't happen, and that won't happen, right? Like I think about how anomalous that game is, right? Like how many five turnover games have we seen from anyone, right? Never mind just the Patriots, like anyone. There's a reason that Nathan Peterman lives on in infamy when he went out there and threw those 5 interceptions, because like you typically don't turn over the ball that many times. So, even 4 turnovers would have been fine, because 4 turnovers still gives you the opportunity to win the game. 5, I mean, all bets are off at 5. That just can't happen.
4, it's like, okay, you're living on the edge. 5 is just like, nope, you're done. You're over.
Yeah,
You're screwed.
Yeah, that'll do it for sure.
The only thing that gives me pause for this Sunday is usually when not a bad team, but like, a team who's not expected to do what they did to a team on Sunday, like Carolina did to Atlanta in their next game. They usually have that, like, not so much like a get right game, but it's more of like a, come back down to earth kind of game. Like,
Yeah.
For Carolina, they took advantage of certain situations. We may need to have a talk about Michael Penix sooner than later, but that's another discussion for another day. We're not Atlanta Falcons fans. But the main thing I look at with this Pittsburgh game was just the fact that their defense, for as much as you love your Patrick Queen, TJ Watt, but the main player who really made an impact, honestly, was the ageless wonder Cam Hayward. Like, the fact that
he was their best player
by far. Like, getting the ball up on the interception. The Antonio Gibson fumble, though, I will say, is like a football gods get you back, because Matt Collins should have been called for the hold on Watt the play previous. So as soon as Gibson fumbled, I'm just like, yeah, that's us getting one back. We got a call in our favor. Now we're getting a call against our favor. The other thing I keep seeing too is, obviously there's a lot of like discourse, like we were talking about people wanting to get Gonzalez out of town. The big one that I'm starting to have a problem with is the Mike Vrabel discourse of people like, oh, it's the same thing as last year. It's like, we owe Gerard Mayo apology. Where I'll say it's 3 games in, completely new regime. Your defensive coordinators unfortunately had to take a leave of absence. We don't know what's wrong with them. We hope the best for Terrell. But there's been so much adjusting periods to where most fans, I think, bought the Kool-Aid or, bought stock. And, hey, this team could surprise. This team could be good. To where you and I and even Sophie knew there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be that adjustment period of, hey, this team's not going to be perfect right away. But if they go into Buffalo next Sunday at 2-2, I think most fans are going to buy that, because that's also their first 2-2 start, I think, since, the COVID year with Cam Newton. So there still is a lot to be excited about. It's just, these are the games Sunday that you got to win. You got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Pittsburgh wasn't a team you're supposed to beat. That was, like I said, that was a chalk loss going into the year. Obviously, they threw the game away. But Carolina's a game that, once the schedule came out in May, we all said, hey, this probably is going to be a win week 4. And if you go into Buffalo at 1-3, that's where you get to see the uneasiness of the fan base. You go 2-2, you know what? Hey, you're playing with house money going into Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I think the thing with the whole variable thing is, how do I put this? People weren't being honest with themselves about what happened last year. Right. So like, we all saw that team won 4 games. They were poorly coached. It wasn't wasn't a very good situation. And people were like, oh, okay, well, Gerard Mayo was obviously the issue. You got rid of him. Things should be gravy here. And while obviously he was an issue, he wasn't like the only issue, right? And so people were like, oh, yes, this is going to be better because you have an actual head coach now. You have an actual head coach. That was like a favorite term all of spring. You have an actual head coach now. But there were still like obvious issues with like the roster, right? Like, and Elliot Wolf is still here, still putting together this roster. I know everyone's going to want to be like, oh, well, it was definitely Vrabel. But Elliot Wolf, as far as we know, is still the general manager. He's still the one assembling the roster. And there's still deficiencies with this roster, just like there were deficiencies with the last roster. So a lot of people kind of got it in their head that like, you got rid of the bad guy. The bad guy was Gerard Mayo. You get rid of the bad guy and everything else is going to fall into place because he was obviously the issue. And this is now the second year in a row that I feel like this fan base has made that same error, right? Because you got rid of Bill at this, prior to the start of 2024, and people kind of said the same thing, like, well, Bill had lost his fastball, he was coaching poorly, things weren't great with him. Now we have a new, it's a new era, and so things are going to be better. And then they weren't, because it wasn't just Bill. Just like now they're not that much better because it wasn't just Mayo, right? So on field, like, the team looks more competent, in my opinion, especially on offense. I think they look more competent, but there's still some issues that they're just kind of working through just because the roster's not very good, right? Like, so I think people weren't being honest with themselves with Gerard Mayo last year, to where they were like, oh yeah, he's definitely the issue. And so things, and so now people are upset because it looks the way it looks. And they're like, well, wasn't Vrabel supposed to fix this? And all I can say to that is, not really. Like, it's going to look better, and it will be better over time. But like Gerard Mayo wasn't the reason that the receiving corps was terrible. Like, that's not on him. You know what I mean? Like, that's he wasn't the reason the offensive line was terrible. That, like, he didn't make it any better. Don't get me wrong. He certainly didn't make it any better, but that wasn't an issue that was caused simply by having a bad head coach. So removing a bad head coach doesn't actually fix that issue. And so we're seeing this year, we're looking, and for whatever reason, the thing that's getting on my nerves is for whatever reason, people keep talking like the O-line is fixed, right? Because they're pass blocking better. So they're like, oh yeah, like the O-line is better. And I'm like, not really, right? Like they're pass blocking better, but they can't run block. Like they can't move guys on the ground. Like that's one of my I had 3 big takeaways from this past Sunday's game. And I had tweeted them out, and I put the caveat out, like, these are going to be unpopular because like no one really wants to hear them. But like my biggest takeaway was Ramondre Stevenson fumbled twice, right? That brings him to 9 over the last 2 years, brings him to 16 on his career. And people are like, well, he needs to go. You need to cut him. You need to bench him. You need to release him. Something, he needs to not be the guy. And that's just not realistic, right? Because when you really look at it, he's their best runner. Like, I know that's weird to say, right? Because you have, Travion Henderson, but he's a really good, and we're talking about Henderson now, he's a really good do-it-all kind of player. I think he runs well enough, and he can catch out of the backfield. He can pass protect, although his pass protection through 3 games has not been very good. But on paper, at least, he's a kind of do-it-all kind of back. But he's not like the best pure runner, right? He's not going to like pick up yards where yards aren't. And that's through 3 games, that's been his issue. He's had 19 carries, only 65 yards. That's 3.4 yards per carry. No explosives, obviously. He hasn't forced a single missed tackle on the entire year. That's bad. So people are like, oh, well, you got to bench Ramondre Stevenson and give Travion the ball. And it's like, right, but like he can't get it done. Like he and that's not necessarily his own fault, right? It's because of the run blocking. The biggest issue is that the line can't block on the ground. And so with Stevenson, he is just picking up yards where yards are not. We had that stat, a couple weeks ago when we talked. Ramondre Stevenson had 15 yards rushing, 17 came after contact. And that's an abysmal stat, right? Like abysmal. That means he's getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage more often than not, and he is just trying to make something happen. He is the only one who is making it happen. Antonio Gibson, I think he's a fantastic pace runner. Yes, absolutely. He can catch out of the backfield. His pass protection really isn't all that great either. Although he isn't asked to do that all too often, and he's a fine runner. He's not going to bowl through guys. He's not like a missed tackle machine or anything like that. He's just a good runner who also has upside as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Cool. He also has 16 fumbles on his career, right? Him and Stevenson have the same number of fumbles. So when they're like, oh, we got to get rid of Ramondre Stevenson, and it's like, why? To give it Antonio Gibson the carries? Like, he fumbles too. Like, and that was his issue. And that's the reason he's not a commander, right? Like, that was his biggest issue. They were like, yo, this guy keeps putting the football on the carpet. And so, the Commanders let him walk, and now he's here. And we saw he came in. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, got to get Stevenson out of there. And they got Stevenson out of there. And then Gibson comes in, and he puts it on the carpet. It's like, well, yeah, but that's what he does. Like, that's who he has been. And again, I think he's a good player, but that's just who he's been. So when people are like, oh, you got to get rid of Ramondre Stevenson, you can't have him carrying the load. And I'm like, well, who are you going to replace him with? They don't have anyone else. Right? Like, they don't have anyone that you can be like, hey, let's give this guy 20 carries a game and feel okay with that. They don't have a single guy like that. On the practice squad, I believe they have Terrell Jennings. And let's be serious. He's not that guy. I like him though, but he's not that guy. I think their running back room is really complementary with Stevenson being the lead guy. I think you take Stevenson out of that and you don't find like an immediate upgrade, and the whole room looks kind of fucked up because Antonio Gibson can't be your lead guy, right? You just can't. Travion Henderson only gets what's blocked for him at this point in his career. He's only getting what they're blocking for him, and what they're blocking for him is 3.4 yards per carry. So you're kind of in a weird place with Ramondre Stevenson. And Vrabel came out right after the game and it was just like, yeah, we have to get him back because we're gonna need him, and that's not coach speak. That's just honesty. Like, we ain't really got no one else we want to run the ball, and we had nobody else who can like really run the ball like that. So like, it's gonna be Ramondre, and no one wants to hear that because people are tired of him. Oh my gosh, like some of the tweets I was reading, I was like, whew, God gracious, they are tired of 38. And I get it. You can't keep putting the football on the ground, but when you're the best option, or when you're the only option, you're gonna get yourself a lot of latitude. You think about Stephen Ridley, another player. I love Stephen Ridley, one of my favorite players. You think about Stephen Ridley, I mean, he put that boy on the ground a lot. Like, I mean, he was just fumbling a ton, especially in that 2013 season. He just kept putting that bitch down. And I'm like, oh my God, how does he keep fumbling? It just kept happening. But he was far and away their best runner, right? LeGarrette Blount was on that team, and he was a good power back. But as far as like the guy that we were just like, yo, we need you to go out there and pick up 7 yards, you had to give it to Ridley because like he was the guy for the job. It eventually ended up just being like, all right, well, LeGarrette Blount's just going to lead the team.
Who had the bad fumble that year against remember the Broncos game? There was wasn't Ridley fumbled like the first drive?
Yeah, and then they benched him for LeGarrette Blount, who then also fumbled, and they benched him, and Brandon Bolden just took it for the rest of the game. That game was great. And then the next week against the Texans, he was inactive. He stood on the sideline the entire time with the football. That was humbling. But all that aside, all that to say, like, the Patriots don't actually have anyone else who you can feel comfortable like, hey, we're just gonna give this guy 20 carries a game. So it's gonna be Ramondre Stevenson. People are gonna be unhappy about that. But at the same time, we saw what he did against Miami last week, where he's just picking up yards that no other back on the roster is picking up because he's the only one running through contact. He's the only one who's forcing missed tackles. Did you know that as of this past Sunday, the Patriots, the only Patriots running backs to force a missed tackle, to break a tackle this year is Ramondre Stevenson. Gibson has 0 per PFF, and Henderson has 0 per PFF. And so it's like, holy shit. Like, like the line can't block, and these guys can't run through contact. So it's like, all right, got to give it to 38. I'm sorry. And also, and not for nothing, he's a good pass blocker. So, like, he's going to be out there, and that's just going to have to be what it is until they kind of, like, figure out what they're going to do. But most importantly, they got to figure out the run blocking. Like, until they figure that out, I don't think it's going to matter who's back there. Because even on the plays where, Ramondre fumbled on the two, his 2 fumbles, you saw both times it was someone just getting beat, penetration getting into the backfield, and then someone forcing the fumble on Ramondre Stevenson. You think about the fumble on the goal line, his second fumble, the one where they finally pulled him. He was, going in, and it's just a duo run. And Michael Nwenu gets absolutely blown off the ball, knifed into the backfield. So, Stevenson makes a jump cut, and as he's making the jump cut, they whack at the football, and that bitch comes out. And it's like, well, does that happen if Nwenu stays on his feet? Maybe not. You know what I mean? But like these are the things that like add on to each other. So it's like, it's easy with Ramondre because he fumbled 7 times last year. So like obviously he's not getting the benefit of the doubt, but the issues are beyond just him carrying the football. Like they really, really got to figure out the run blocking. I mean, Jesus Christ. You think about Michael Nwenu has been atrocious in run blocking. I mean, and that's weird because he's like one of your best linemen, like probably your best lineman actually. And he's been really good in pass protection. He's just been abysmal in the run game. You know what I mean? Jared Wilson, who I really like. I really, really do like Jared Wilson. I think he's going to be a great player for the next 6-7 years for the Patriots, but he has been really poor in run blocking. You think about Will Campbell, he's been excellent in pass protection, or pretty good in pass protection. He had a rough game on Sunday, but he's been pretty good in pass protection. He's been abysmal against the run. So it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, fix your run blocking. Like, figure that out. I think their best run blocker, as weird as it's going to be, maybe Garrett Bradbury at this point. Like, to this point in the season, he's probably been the cleanest lineman. So it's just tough. That's tough. But there's more to it than just, oh, Ramondre sucks. Let's get him out of here. Because like, even if that's true, and put who? Like, and put who? Again, I know people are going to be saying it should be Trevion, but they need to like actually watch the game, like just watch the games. And moreover, on Henderson, one more time before I pass it back. I really like him. I think he's going to be a special player, right? I think he's going to be like a oh man, we got to watch out for 32. Like figure out what to do with him. I think he's going to be a special player. But as a runner, we haven't seen anything NFL wise to make me think like, oh yes, he's going to just like turn it on and just become like this elite runner. Because even in the preseason, people will be like, oh, well, he was good in the preseason. And to that, I will say, was he? Right? Like, was he good running the ball in the preseason? He only ran it 5 times, right? Like against the Commanders, he ran it 1 time, picked up 27. That was a great play, obviously. And then against Minnesota, he ran it 4 times. And that's it. Those were all of his carries for the entire preseason. So was he really that, was he like that as a runner? No, but he was an exciting player, right? He caught it out of the backfield well. He ran through contact when he caught the ball. He had the stick kick return against, Washington. So I think that kind of gets people thinking like, oh, he's like obviously the better player. We should just play him. But we haven't actually seen him do anything as a running back, like on the ground, just handing him the ball and making something happen. We've not actually seen him do that. So I'm curious to see, at what point he kind of turns it on, because right now it's not there.
Yeah, the thing with Travion, I've always said, is because people were even drafting him a little too high in fantasy. Although I'd rather be in the position we're in with him than, the Raiders are in with Genty. But that's, like I said, another discussion for another day.
They have an atrocious line. They also have an atrocious line. They can't run block. They cannot block it. No back has been hit in the backfield more than Ashton Genty this season. None. And it's not even close either. It's absurd.
I only say that just because, how there's all the hype with him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, why can't Ashton Genty do this? It's like asking you the same thing. Why can't Travion Henderson do this? It's going to take time. Like, even look at someone like Bijan Robinson, to where, his first year, obviously, that's also Arthur Smith's fault. But, through the last couple seasons, we started to see with Bijan, hey, him really turn on the jet. So you just get Travion into the right situations and put him in the best positions he can to be successful. That's what's going to make him a great back in the NFL. I feel like there are certain positions, like wide receiver is obviously one that's always just, you can turn over talent and find people that are going to be great because it's, hey, catch the ball, run the route. I feel like there's certain tight ends and there's certain running backs that coming out of college, they're expected to be these dynamic elite superstars immediately. That's why I referenced Genty. That's why I referenced Bijan, Kyle Pitts, There's all these players where it's I know we're talking about 87 on the text thread Sunday night, but his first few years weren't anything glamorous. It wasn't until a few years in that he finally started to find his groove and his rhythm to be the all-pro Hall of Famer that he is, even though this year, Jesus Christ, please retire. So my thing for Patriots fans on Travion is the same thing. Give it time. You don't just throw meat on the grill and expect it to taste good. No, you got to marinate. You got to season it. You got to let that thing cook. No one's serving bland chicken or steak here. We're not eating that. We like a little seasonings. We like seasoning on our food, McGarvin and I. And then the other thing with this team too is obviously, look, we can get very drunk if we drink for every time there's a missed tackle, but the Milton Williams and Harold Landry signings are two of my favorite signings I think they've done in the last 3 or 4 years. Just guys who right away, yeah. They're basically I'll be honest with you. I know obviously you weren't on the show last week. You were on the shelf, but I basically told the world, "Hey, ice cream. That's why we fucking paid you 4 or 5 or 6 times after he got that sack on Tua." So him and Barmore have been very complimentary of each other. Harold Landry's been great. Also too though, Michael Wenu. Sure, he's been a bad run blocker, but you know what? He's our NFLPA rep now. So I guess if stuff goes down, he's the one communicating it back to the players. Looking ahead to Sunday, though, if I were to look to a key to victory, I'm looking ahead at one game on the schedule. Their next home game after Sunday is against Cleveland. That game is going to be a 14-10, 10-7, just brutal, boring game because both offenses have their problems and both teams have defenses to where they can shut down those pretty mediocre offenses. But going back to my point about Sunday's game, I think as long as someone from Carolina doesn't have a Bazooka Joe go-off day, mainly, Tet McMillan, mainly Chuba Hubbard, if they can keep those guys in line and, make Bryce throw into uncomfortable situations, that's where I think they'll win. I think this game really is going to be one on which defense can make the other offense uncomfortable. And if I had to put my money or any eggs in the basket of that, I'm going to go New England just because even though they went belt ass against a division rival on Sunday, it's a little different from when you're playing a team you only see maybe once every 2 to 4 years, more than likely or not 4, So that's the way I see Sunday. I do see a win. +2 for Drake. It's going to be good to get a good victory against his hometown team.
Yeah, I think the key for the Patriots, I think the Patriots win if they can get pressure with their front four. If they don't have to blitz, I think that's fine. But I know they currently lead the league in sacks, right? Everyone, or they did prior to Sunday. They have a ton of pressure, but they're all manufactured pressures, and that worries me because it's just not sustainable. We're talking about they're sending 5-6 guys, and so they're getting pressure that way, and everyone's like, oh, okay, they have a really good pass rush. But we see that when it's just a standard 4-man rush, Harold Landry's doing what he can do. He's doing all he can do, but he needs a running mate, man. Like Kayvon Chason has just not been impactful as a one-on-one edge rusher, right? Like I think he's getting his best pressure on stunts, right? And that's fine too. But when we're talking about just like hey, line it up and just go, we just don't have the guys on the edge who are going to win that matchup, one-on-one. Harold Landry can do it. Kayvon Chason hasn't shown me that he can do it. I think they're getting incredible interior pressure, right? Christian Barmore doesn't have any of the sacks, but he's so impactful as a rusher. If you watch back the All-22, he's actually the one drawing the double teams. He's the one drawing, like they're like, hey, we're just gonna make sure 90 doesn't do it, right? Like I thought maybe I'm just naive, but I thought that would be that would have been Milton Williams. Like they would have been like, hey, let's kind of focus on Milton Williams, and so Barmore's getting more favorable matches. But through 3 games, it's just been like, hey, make sure 2 people are on 90, and we'll take our chances everywhere else. And that's that paid off for Pittsburgh this past week because they weren't sacked. But I don't know that Carolina can do that, especially with some of their injury woes on that offensive line, right? They just lost Austin Corbett for, 6 to 8 weeks was that? Like 3 months or 2 or 3 months. So like they just lost him. It's not they don't have a great line to begin with. So that is tough. But at the same time, I think New England can find themselves in trouble if Bryce Young gets to extending those plays because he's going to find people open, right? I don't anticipate Christian Gonzalez is going to play until we'll see what changes, but until he gets a full week of practice where he's not limited every day, then I'm just going to assume he's not out just because it's better for my own mental health to be like, all right, well, he's just not going to play. And if he doesn't play, then they're just going to have to figure it out. Ted McMillan is just, he looks like the real deal. And more importantly, it's his size. They got some big motherfucking receivers over there, right? Jalen Coker's over there, Xavier Legette, although he's having
Coker's still hurt.
Is Coker still out? I thought he returned last week. I thought he returned to practice last week.
I'm not sure. I think he was out the first 4 weeks. By the way, Corbett is it's a knee injury. So literally, I Googled Austin Corbett, and the first thing that came up was, what happened to Austin Corbett?
Knee injury. How long are we talking? Is this still 6 to 8?
So Jalen Coker was 4 to 6 with a quad. That was on August 30th. So we're coming up on.
He's on IR.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're coming up on that right now, and then Austin Corbett, also a lawyer coming up for that one randomly. Austin Corbett re-injured the MCL in his left knee, the same one that he hurt there, and so right here, first headline. Dave Canales delivers tough news on return timelines for Austin Corbett. And I'm just going to read the whole article because there's more than one player for Austin Corbett and Robert Hunt. So,
wait, Robert Hunt is hurt as well? I missed that.
Robert Hunt had successful surgery on his biceps injury and is out indefinitely and would not rule out a late season injury. And then
torn bicep will do it every year.
Yeah, and then Elijah Vera Tucker, I think, had the same thing this year. Corbett is not going to have surgery for his MCL. Instead, he's going to rehab. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. Gotcha. So, I don't know what.
Okay, so then, so then what you're looking at for Carolina receiver-wise, you're talking about Ted McMillan, Xavier Legette, if he is back this week. I know he missed last week. He's also had a rough start to the year. Goodness, I feel so bad for him. He's kind of having a Pop Douglas kind of start to his year, where it's just like it's just not really happening, and he's out there, he's playing a ton. It's just not really happening for him. They have Hunter Renfrow, David Moore, and what is his name? Jimmy Horn Jr. He's not a big receiver, but I think he's a good player. But I don't believe he's played this year, so I'd be interested to see if he's in this week. But they got some. I like their receiving core, and I know they have some injuries at tight end as well. I believe Jatavius Sanders.
He's a D next to his name.
Yeah, he's unlikely to play. I know that they'll have Tommy Tremble and Mitchell Evans and whoever the third tight end is.
James Mitchell.
Okay, I do not know that man, but I know Mitchell Evans and Tommy Tremble, so I'm like, all right, I know those two guys, and Tommy Tremble's a good player, so like, all right, I think if Bryce gets to scrambling, he's gonna be able to find those guys, because the Patriots secondary isn't like a lockdown secondary, especially if Gonzalez is out. And they've been playing a ton of zone coverage. And so you give the quarterback opportunities to scramble, he's going to find someone in a vacated zone. So I think if they can get pressure with their front four and they don't have to send any extra rushers, Patriots can win that game. If they are having to blitz, I think you're going to end up in some rough spots, especially downfield, because I just, we've talked about this. I just don't think their safety play is very good. And we know their linebacker play isn't very good either. So it's like, you kind of want to just like protect those guys, line up, play your zone coverages. They're playing a ton of cover 2 over the last couple weeks. So we'll see what happens. If we're thinking matchups, you're thinking Tet McMillan versus, Carlton Davis. I just not really sure how I feel about that. It should be a good matchup in general, but I think if that is your primary matchup, Tet McMillan is going to have a number of wins. And if that is not your primary matchup, that's going to be bad. Simply due to the fact that Alex Austin has been having a rough couple weeks there over the last 2 weeks against Miami. He gave up the touchdown, obviously. And then this past week, he had the PI. He had the deep ball against Miami that he also missed on. He's just not been all that great. And your other corner there is Marcus Jones, who I think is a good cover corner. But his size is going to be a limiting factor. And if you're putting, 5'7" Marcus Jones up against, 6'12" Tet McMillan, you're gonna be asking for trouble. So get pressure with your front four, keep everything in front of you, rally and tackle, make the fucking tackles, which just not a given with this team. And then you can win. On the flip side, offensively, how the Patriots win. They got to run the ball. They just got to figure out how to get that ball moving, because you can't have Drake dropping back, as many times as he does. We saw how it looked in Miami, right, where it was more balanced. They didn't throw that many passes. He only threw 23 passes. I think he had 7 scrambles on top of that. So only like 7 only 30 dropbacks in general. Not too bad here. Last week he dropped back, I think 40-ish times. In week 1 he dropped back 51 times. We're asking a lot of Drake May with a team that still just needs to learn how to win. And we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see what they do with, the slot receiver position. I know a lot of people are over Pop Douglas, just because he's seeing a lot of targets and not seeing a lot of catches and production out of it. And then obviously he, blew the 4th down, where he jumped back a yard, gave up a yard to try to make a move to pick up the 4th down. And, obviously didn't convert it. Team lost the game. And so people are tired of Pop Douglas, and the calls for Ethan Chisholm are getting very loud. I just don't really know that makes a lot of sense.
So I'm also going to apologize because I think my feed cut in and out. You basically having it showed you freeze, and then I went to go pause it, and it turns out it was me, and then you were talking. So McGarvin held down the fort.
Yeah, I just kept. I look. You'll see it on the playback, but my eyes grew wide. I was like, oh my god, what happened? I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's keep going. Just go. He'll be back.
The only thing I want to say about Carolina, just before we wrap up, is the only lineman there's 2 linemen I recognize. It's both are tackles, and Eki Ekwonu and Taylor Moton. Besides that, Chandler Zavala, Cade Mays, and Damian Lewis. So that's going to be fun there. The other thing I will agree with you on, and also to the fact, A'Shawn Robinson and Derek Brown, I don't think are 2 defenders to be ignored for Carolina as well. So if they can handle those 2, I think can be a good day. But if you let I think Derek Brown's a very underappreciated pass rusher just because he is in a bad situation in Carolina. But he was always, like we say, everyone's like, oh, Carolina, he was a top 10 pick coming out for a reason. I know he went to Auburn. Auburn hasn't been the most, they've been in the news recently, but obviously for basketball, not football. I completely agree with you. The Ethan Chisholm thing, I think it's just it's the folk name. Everyone wants to see the underdog because it's what the Patriots do. I want to say don't give up on what we have, because I still think this team has a lot of potential, because for all we know, this team can, hey, if they get off to a bit of a rough start, they turn a corner, and then before you know it, we snap our fingers, and October, November, December, this team's on a roll. Because you look down the stretch, there's a couple games now where at first, Cincinnati, we were we're not sure, and then you saw what happened in Cincinnati on Sunday, and all of a sudden we're hey, that's a very winnable game for New England. There's there's a lot of potential here. I just think they just got to put the pieces together. They got to play a full 60 and just learn not to shoot themselves in the foot. Really, that's the big thing. Just hey, capitalize on your mistakes, limit the mistakes, and just it's all about just playing mistake-free football. Because at the end of the day, they can go out there and do all those things for 60 minutes. They're going to come out on top, and if they can get a win at home, you really, really help flip the script on a place where you've won 3 games over the last 3 years. Something not to really be proud of, but that's just how the cookie crumbles for them the last few years. If they lose, though, we burn the lighthouse with kerosene.
Yeah, they need a quality win in Gillette. They haven't had one since Mac Jones upset the Bills in that one year. That was a great game. Great year. No, not a great year. Great game though. That was a lot of fun.
That year though, they had 2 of my favorite victories. That one, and then the Broncos Christmas Eve with the Chad Ryland walk-off field goal.
Yep.
2 of my favorites. Before we go, a couple things. One, quick trip around the NFL. Last night, Baltimore-Detroit played a great game, but you know what? Everyone's mad at Marlon Humphrey now and not Derrick Henry. I'm going to say this. I think we all owe the Detroit Lions an apology. They're just fine. I think a lot of people forgot, and I'll say this. I think a lot of people forgot about how good Alex Anzalone is for them.
That is so wild. That's so wild.
He's a good piece to have, but also to aid.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's wild because goodness, he was one of the worst linebackers in the league when he was with the Saints. I thought he was I was like, this guy cannot play. And then he got to Detroit and really turned it around. I was like, wow, he can play. But it just when he was in New Orleans, I was like, wow, this guy's one of the worst players I've ever seen. So good for him for turning it around. He was phenomenal. Even though he allowed a touchdown, I mean, the throw on that touchdown was insane. So what can you do?
There's also the one guy, Nowinski last night, who just impressed the hell out of me. He was in every play. He's just one of those guys where, he's right there. Him and Muhammad as well.
Al-Qadim Muhammad.
I think with Detroit too, offensively, it took a while, but then I think people too. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are still probably the best dual running back set in the NFL right now.
I think more than that, I think where they're fine and the reason they're still just fine, their O-line hasn't really missed the beat. I know they got a couple of young guys in there. Mahogany, who's a second-year player, he's in one of the guard spots, and so everyone's kind of worried, and then Tate Ratledge on the other side, what are we going to do with these young guys? What are they going to do with these young guys? And they've just been lining up and just mauling motherfuckers. So if you can just line up and maul motherfuckers, you're going to be fine in this league. And we saw that out of Detroit.
And it also helps that you have a top 3 right tackle in the NFL as well on your line. But no, and the other thing too with Detroit, I know everyone's worried about the coordinators. Man, Calvin Shepard, phenomenal job with that defense. He fits right into that culture. I think my biggest thing with that game last night was that I know they got they landed 7 sacks on Lamar, so everyone's like, oh my gosh, their front was really getting after it. In truth, it was really their secondary that was absolutely balling. Lamar would just drop back and there would just be nowhere to go with the football. So he's just tentative to scramble because he's trying to extend the play because that's how he operates. He's going to extend the play and then make a throw downfield. There was just nowhere to go with the football. So shout out to Detroit. They really did their damn thing. Also, Baltimore's run defense. I mean, we're gonna have to have a conversation about that. That they're bad. They are bad up front. Ever since I saw the Marlon Humphrey meme, I don't know what it is. So my timeline from away fans was Monday. Titans fans who want Brian Callahan just fired. Who just they hate. I've never seen hate for a coach. Obviously for us, for Gerard, we were you're not the guy for the job, but no one hated Gerard. They hate Brian Callahan in Tennessee. I also think if they get belt the ass by the 0-3 Texans, it might happen Monday morning. The other thing that's surprising me with today, though, with Baltimore is the amount of we miss Mike McDonald's content that I've been seeing coming from that fan base.
They are upset with Orr. They don't think he's doing a good job. But I mean, he started slow last year. His unit started slow last year, and they turned it around. I think it'll be fine as well. This year, in truth, the injuries up front just mattered a little more than I think we all kind of gave it credit for. Justin Madubuike didn't play, and so you had Travis Jones, filling in, and he's been a really good, second banana for them. For the, he's been starting alongside Justin Madubuike or Nnamdi Madubuike, pardon. he's been starting alongside him. But this week, obviously without his running mate, he's just been in there, and he had the worst game of his career. Talking about Travis Jones here. The third round pick. What year was that? Was that the Bailey Zappi year? I think it was the third round pick the year that Bailey Zappi was drafted.
He was out of UConn. I remember I had him on my board. Along with another Baltimore Raven I had on my board that year, Daniel Falele, who's on, I believe, their right guard right now.
Yes, and he has been he has not been very good. I don't know what's going on with him.
Rosengarten's Rosengarten's
their right tackle. Falele is their right guard. And he's just they are just like tired of that guy. I mean, Ravens fans, the one time they were very vocal. They do not like that guy, and I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. I remember Dietrich Wise had one of the best games of his career against them. He had 3 sacks and a half, and they're like, oh shit, we got to move this guy, and so they ended up kicking him inside the guard. But all that to say, they were missing Nnamdi Madubuike up front, and then they were missing Kyle Van Noy, and so it really showed too because they were just getting blown off the football, and Detroit's just like moving these dudes and just taking it downhill on them, and I'm like, wow, they really got to figure it out. I think their secondary is going to be just fine. I think Nate Wiggins, low key, is just having a really, really solid start to his career. He looks good. You have Malachi Starks. All right, he's a good player. Marlon Humphreys. He's good every other year. And so he was good last year. So I don't expect him to be better. But I mean that too. If you look up his play over his career, it's like, especially look up his PFF grades. If you're into PFF grades, look up his PFF grades. It's like every other year it looks awful, and then when he's not awful, he's like all pro. So it's like, all right, well, I don't know what to do there. And then they have obviously Kyle Hamilton in that secondary. I think the secondary is going to be fine. Jair Alexander, I know he had a really, really rough game against the Bills, and then he's been inactive the last couple of weeks. But I think they'll be just fine up there. Baltimore's going to be just fine. They just started 1-2. They had a tough start to their schedule, and then they play Kansas City, and I think they have a fair shot against Kansas City too. Because goodness, talk about a game that was an absolute snoozer as their Sunday night game against the Giants. That was bad.
I don't think that whatever team loses that game on Sunday is done, but it's going to be a really hard mountain to climb. I think it's more of a must-win for the Chiefs because the Chargers have 3 divisional wins to start the year.
Yeah.
And then one other take I have with the NFL. Do we owe Jonathan Taylor an apology, or is Jonathan Taylor, did people underrate him or what? Because he's just, I feel like, because every time I feel like he has a good year and everyone's like ready to buy stock on him, he either hits a ceiling or he gets hurt. But then this year he's just been back to what I think people saw with him at Wisconsin.
Yeah. I think he's always just been good, right? I think more than I don't know that he's underrated. I think people just kind of overrated his down year. He had a down year, was it last year? And people just kind of like overrated that. They were like, yes, he is cooked, he is washed, he's not very good. And I'm like, that's just not true. That's just not true. He's just like, he's just having a down year, and that's all right. Mind you, a down year. I'm thinking of the year prior, because last year I think he had 1,400 yards. The year prior, he had a down year. Yes, in 23 he had a down year, and people were like, "Oh, he's gonna be terrible. Oh, he's just washed now." He's fine. He's a good player, bro. He's good.
Yeah, and then the only other, I'm not ready to say this just yet, but we talked about it as well. I'm not ready to have the CJ Stroud conversation, but I think if their season goes south, I think the call for D'Amico Ryans to, if he stays beyond this year, might start to get a little bit louder. I'm not too sure, but. And I know they've lost to one divisional team and they've lost to 2 really good teams in Tampa Bay and LA, but there's just something there that's just, not right with the Houston Texans this year.
They're poorly coached.
That's why I say the calls for, I think if the worse and worse this gets, the more and more it's going to be, you're going to hear D'Amico Ryans' name, or how there's always a surprise candidate on Black Monday that gets let go.
Yeah. It's weird to say because obviously they had a really he came out of the gates firing and they were like really good as CJ Stroud's rookie year, but they're just like badly coached. Like you watch and you're like, oh boy, what are we doing here? And I don't just mean schematically. I mean just like in terms of discipline, in terms of like knowing what to do in any given situation. I think they're a poorly coached team, and until they figure that out, I think they're going to be bad. Last year, everyone kind of put it on Bobby Slowick, and they were like, "Oh, he's terrible." After crowning him a genius the year prior, riddle me that. But they put it all on Bobby Slowick, and then they got rid of him. And it still looks the same. It still looks kind of fucked up. So I think it's beyond a coordinator issue. It's just they got to figure it out. Also, weird coming from a Patriots fan, but they just need more talent. Like, they're really not that talented a team, right? I know they changed their O-line, but I don't think they improved their O-line in any like significant way. Their skill position guys aren't they have Nico Collins, and like that is it, right? Because Tank Dell is he's just not going to play this year. He's just not going to play. Like, I think we should just all kind of get comfortable with the fact that he's just not going to play. And then you have Christian Kirk is out there playing like real life snaps for them in 2025, and I'm like, he reeks. So like, God, goodness gracious, what do we got going on? And I believe Braxton Berrios is down there, and I'm like, if Braxton Berrios is a guy you're counting on to like play games for you, I don't know, man. That is not a good team on offense. I just don't see it there. Their talent is just not there. On defense, though, I think they got some juice over there. Kamari Lassiter, their second corner, number 4. I think he's fantastic. They obviously Derek Stingley was all pro last year. Their edge rushers, their edge tandem is really good. Christian Harris is a really good linebacker for them. I think they're good on the defense side. I think offensively, goodness, Lord help us. What happened?
Henry Toll from Alabama as well.
Yeah. Yep. Built by Bama, and he'll get it done. So yeah, and Dalton Schultz, I forgot about him on offense, their tight end. I think he's a good player too. So
there's just always a breed of Samoan football players who are just completely violent psychopaths. It starts from Troy Polamalu, and it just works its way down. Him, Hufanga in Denver, which I will say this with Denver, I think they'll be fine, but I want to say I was right. Basically not everyone buying stock in the Bo Nix thinking they were going to win the West, where right now that might be the Los Angeles Chargers, because Justin Herbert found his little fuck you attitude, and I think the league should be worried.
Yeah, with the Chargers,
you're waiting for the moment for them to Chargers?
Yes, because that's what they do. So I'm like, but on paper, I really like what they got going on over there. They have no running game, though. I think that's gonna be their Achilles heel. They have no running game.
They're not like a Super Bowl contender by any standard of the means, but they're definitely going to be a team either in the playoffs or like in the mix. They'll always be that team that's like, finishing anywhere from winning the division to like getting the 5th, 6th, or 7th, or potentially even just barely missing out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the mix, and I think they can. They can contribute for or contend for a Super Bowl. I worry about teams who cannot run the ball, who fashion themselves, contenders, because I really subscribe to the theory that you run out the blowout, right? Like, if you're going to like be beating teams' ass, like, you better be able to like run that thing to close out the game, because you don't want to be throwing, up 10, with 7 minutes to go. You don't want to be throwing the football a bunch. All right. You just kind of want to bleed some clock, like kind of get this game under control. But Amari Hampton is averaging the same amount of yards per carry as Trevion Henderson, 3.4 yards per carry. They're not really doing anything either. So they got to figure out their run game, but I think they will.
I think they will too. I trust the Chargers. I also think Jesse Minter is another name to watch for in the head coaching cycle next year, because we all know 25% of head coaches aren't going to be there next year. And Jesse Minter, I think, is a name that's going to be considered for jobs. I don't know if he'll get a job, but he'll definitely be considered. And then we talked about it briefly. I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the Kansas City Chiefs yet, but I don't know if I've ever seen more than the offense. So like we said, we talked about Travis Kelce and how that man, like, watching him, there's just some of the plays Sunday where I'm like, you shouldn't have come back. I'm watching that game, like, you shouldn't have come back. But Chris Jones, I think, has lost. I don't know if he's lost a step, but he's not what he once was. Like, he's just not looking the same.
Yeah, he's not having the same impact as usual. That's been pretty surprising. Do they have a pass rush? I know they have George Karlaftis. I think he's so streaky, though. I know that you really like him, but I think he's a really streaky kind of pass rusher. And that's fine, because like, if you can turn it on for a good streak, then like it's gonna feel good anyway. But like, generally, I don't think he's like, when I think of like, impact players, I really don't think of George Karlaftis like that. I know that like he has like the sack numbers, right? I think he has 2 sacks on the year. Last year he had, let me check that up. He had
double digits or close to it.
He had 8 last year. He had 8 sacks last year. After having 10.5 the year prior. So he's kind of like broken through. I just don't think he's like a dominant player like that. I think he's so streaky. And as a result, if he's slumping at the same time that Chris Jones is slumping, that defensive line has no bite. So I'm curious to see what they do there, especially after they whiffed on Felix and FAU. I want to butcher the last name, but they took him in the first round 2 years ago. Yeah, and he's just like not been very good. So I'm so curious to see what they do. The secondary is also interesting because, like, I think on paper I like the names, but then I watch them play and I'm like, just like Trent McDuffie trying to make it happen, right? Like Jalen Watson's a good corner, like he's fine, and then Cook is a good safety for them, number 6. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how they turn it around because I think they do as well. I just don't really know how. I just kind of believe that they will because like they're the Chiefs. So I'm like, oh, they're gonna like figure it out. But like, I am so curious to see how they figure it out because I think low key they have like the worst running back room in the league.
Yeah, like their schedule coming up, like after they obviously play Baltimore Sunday in the prime CBS slot, which apart from Chris Collinsworth just completely glazing them on that play, which that was ridiculous.
Oh, on the fumble or on the lateral, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's the backwards pass. So after the Chiefs, after the Ravens, they have the Jags, the Lions, the Raiders, the Commanders, and then the Bills before their bye week. So there are some games that are winnable, but then there are some games where it's like you're not ducking anyone because it's CBS prime slot, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, 1 o'clock, Monday Night Football. You know Nance and Rome are going to be at that Bills game talking about 2022 500 times. So for them, I think this Sunday is more of a must-win game for them because I think if they fall to 1-3, not that the sky is falling, but that's where it's going to be, the national media talking, oh, can they do this? Oh, can they do that? Meanwhile, with Baltimore, you have a Pittsburgh team I think that they can beat. Cincinnati, look, the Jake Browning Cinderella run is come to an end. Like we saw what happened there. And Cleveland, Cleveland's defense will keep them in it, but the offense is just not there. So I think Baltimore's the one team, even at 1-3, they'll be fine. Kansas City goes to 1-3. It starts to panic again because, I think I said this to you, but I'm just like, I don't know if Rashee Rice fixes the offense. I don't know if trading for a Tyreek Hill or Calvin Ridley really fixes the offense. And then, like we said earlier, Travis Kelce, just some of the plays out there, he just does not look interested. He's just
yeah.
It's not even cooked. Yeah. It's just like, brother, what are you doing?
Yeah, when he's down, he's out there running a go route against Tyler Nubin in one-on-one coverage, and he can't shake him. I'm like, oh my god, he's cooked. He's cooked because and no disrespect to Tyler Nubin, but it's just Tyler Nubin. You know what I mean? Come on. So when he can't run away from him, I'm like, oh my god, he lost it. He lost it. You look at Travis Kelce, and most of his plays at this point, and this is last year as well, most of his big plays just come from him just finding open space, right? Just finding an opening and then just trying to make it happen from there. And that could either be blown coverage, but at this point, it happens with him so frequently that I can't just say, oh, they just keep blowing the coverage. Because why do they only keep blowing the coverage for him and never anyone else? It's he's doing something and he's finding some space and then he's just making it happen from there. But goodness, when he is locked up in one-on-one situations, it feels rough. And obviously Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice will help with that. But as far as schematically, they just don't have anything going on. It's drop back and just wait for Mahomes to hit someone downfield after extending the play because everything else is not happening. Or I would have said that if we didn't see the breakout from Ty God himself. Oh yeah, baby, we're calling it a breakout. He had 71 yards and a touchdown. That's good.
I was happy for him because it's you give him a real quarterback and an actual offensive scheme and he could play. Who would have thought? And then the other thing with Kansas City, I'll say is I think they'll be a playoff team. You can't look at me with a straight face and say that they're going to go to their 4th straight Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
I still think with the Super Bowl right now, for me, it is Buffalo's to lose, which I'm at the point with Buffalo where I'm like, if you don't get there this year, I don't know when you're going to. Like, I'm not saying it's now or never, but it's just like, this seems like as good of an opportunity as ever. And I'm waiting for the Philadelphia Eagles to get to the NFC Championship game and then piss down their leg. Like, you know how Tom Brady would always just find ways to win in the NFC Championship? Like the 2013 one against Denver, where they just couldn't get anything going and Denver ran all over them.
Yep.
Not the 2015 one. That's on Dave Guglielmo and no one else in that shitty offensive line. But, yeah, that's the thing just with those teams. Like, and then with Kansas City, I think they'll win Sunday. I think they'll be fine. And then they're 2-2, and you know the national media narrative. They're back. Kansas City's good. But then you slowly start to see where it's like they're good, but they're not great. And I feel like that's the whole thing for them. And also, too, they played so much football to where if they have a year where they don't make a deep run, I think it'll only help them in the long run.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but you know how people get on social media. It's gonna, this is the end of the dynasty. Oh, everything is awful. I personally, I think they lose on Sunday. I think they just don't stop the run well enough, and I think if Derrick Henry can get going, that'll be the case. But hopefully he doesn't fumble, because he's fumbled in every game. He just keeps fumbling. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is tough. And both, oh my goodness, both this fumble and the fumble against Buffalo happened in like almost the same way, like going down the left side, just trying to make a guy miss at the line, and ball bit and punched out, and then no one's there to recover it. It's like, and he looked like he was going to cry. Oh, that was so sad.
I know, and we have a friend right now who, part of me, whenever I see these Baltimore performances, I'm like, what's Sophie going through right now with all this?
Yeah.
Obviously not her, but her boyfriend. But last thing before we wrap up here, do you have a score prediction for Sunday? Or are you not ready to do that yet?
For the Patriots?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go 17-10.
Ooh, I'm going to do 23-16. I feel like I think because I can see one of those games where Carolina like gets close, but then third down they just, because what I saw Bryce Young, like, basically it's the game against Arizona where they Arizona kind of let them come back into the game, but then Bryce Young just made stupid plays when he wasn't supposed to. So I could see something like that happen where they force him into uncomfortable situations rather than force him to roll out of the pocket. Because if they force him to roll out of the pocket, that's where it's going to be a long day for the Patriots. But I think if you can keep him in the pocket, make him do stupid, that's where you perform. And also, 2 notes. One, Thursday is the debut of the Rivals jerseys. I know Arizona is going to be in the tortilla jerseys. And someone said it on Twitter, and I can't unsee it. The jerseys look like
that's so real. Seattle's jerseys are pretty fire.
And then Sunday, we get 12 hours of football as the Steelers and Vikings kick off from Dublin, Ireland at 9:30 in the morning. I'm very much looking forward to a full day of football on Sunday.
Love a Sunday morning football.
Little breakfast, little football. Can't go wrong there. 390 episodes of this damn thing, passion project called YWC Football Talk, are in the books. I'll be back because we've got some stuff up north football to talk about. And then Thursday night, I'll be here to preview all the games with a very special guest. But McGarvin and I will be back next week to chum it up as the Jets take on the Dolphins, because who in God's green earth needs to watch a game with sound on? I know him and I don't.
Nope. But we get to see those sick Miami uniforms. So, yeah, win-win there.
Bill's friend of mine tweeted this out today saying a team that bad does not deserve uniforms that good.
So true. So true.
That's what it is. But anyway, guys, 390 in the bag, 400 coming up very soon. Have a good night, everybody. Go Pats.
Bye.